The Coachella Valley Firebirds advanced to the next round of the playoffs after a thrilling, heart-pounding, sports-clichéing double overtime series clinching victory over the Ontario Reign, and they are now going to advance to play the Colorado Eagles in the next round of the AHL playoffs. And we're going to talk about all of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Zaiem Beg, and I'm a Seattle-based journalist covering the Supersonics, Torrington Kraken, and welcome to Locked On Kraken. Today, we're going to talk about Bobby McMann's upcoming free agency and the perils that potentially brings. We're also going to talk about the environment for those perils created by the rising salary cap, but first, we need to talk about the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who have done it again, staving off elimination as one does to elimination. It's one of the few things one does stave off. You stave off elimination and hunger, and I think that's pretty much it. No one's like, I staved off a bear the other day. No one does that, but the Firebirds, baby Kraken, stave off elimination now 4-0, facing elimination, this time beating the Ontario Reign. Obviously, Ontario, California. I can't think of anywhere in the world where they play hockey in a place called Ontario other than California. And this was a really fantastic game 5 in a best of 5. So how did the Firebirds get there? Well, they won game 1 and they got blown out in game 2, and then they lost game 3. Now it's best of 5. So if you're down 2-1, you got to win. You got to win games 4 and 5. And that's what they did. Game 4, they end up with a really strong showing and not a particularly competitive game, which then set up game 5 on Saturday. This was a barn burner. If you had a barn, it is now in flames. The Firebirds were overall I think the stronger team this series. They generated more shot quality overall. It seemed that we don't have expected goals model, but just eyeballing, watching the games and then looking at the shot charts, it did seem like the Firebirds were overall just generating more shot quality. And Nikke Kokko, I think he did struggle a little bit at points in this series and throughout this playoffs, but he was pretty sharp in this one. He did give up a goal that I think he wanted to, he would want back. But aside from that, really sharp. And, we got Yanni Newman scoring, and then Oscar Fisker Mølgaard, who has been on an absolute tear, scores his 6th goal of the playoffs. And, they haven't even played that many games, right? So he is just really setting up, now Firebirds are up 2-1, but Andre Lee ties the game for Ontario in the 3rd period. And then we go to the most stressful overtime. This was an elimination game, right, for both teams. So now we're in sudden death for the series. Last shot wins the game. Last shot wins the series. And it was a goaltending clinic. And there was a sequence where Logan Morrison, I was 100% sure that the Firebirds were going to score and win the game right then and there. It was just the most juicy, tantalizing puck right in front, and Logan Morrison gets on it, and then somehow Portillo, Eric Portillo, the Reign goalie, somehow, like I don't know how he made the save, but he makes a save. And then on the other end, it's just like this series of nonsense, and it's like all of this traffic in front of Nikke Kokko, and you're like, is this how it ends? Is this how it ends? And it's like, oh, traffic in front, and no, oh, it went wide, and like, oh, where's the puck? Puck is loose. Was nuts. So the overtime chart, the shot chart, this is for the first and then second overtime, because one overtime wasn't enough, and we had to play 20 minutes of incredibly stressful hockey, and then we end up having to play even more stressful hockey. But if you are watching this on video, then you can see, and if you're not, I will try to describe this for you, that the Coachella Valley Firebirds ended up with maybe not as much shot quality, not as much net front as Ontario, but Nikke Kokko was really outstanding, facing 36 shots, making 34 saves, and he has gotten better, I think, as these playoffs have gone along overall. I mean, it's goaltending, it's the playoffs, it's that you're often going to see even very good goalies, even on championship runs, have bad games. That's just sometimes how this goes. The example that I always think of was the 2001 Stanley Cup Finals, Patrick Roy and Martin Brodeur, and I don't think either of them had a good game. There were no games where they both played well. There was like 2 first ballot, Mount Rushmore Hall of Fame goalies, and then we never actually got a goaltending battle, and this is how it is. And that series went 7, and so Nikke Kokko, I think overall this really is best for him, and he is the one who is benefiting the most from this playoff run, because look, goaltending takes a long time to develop, and you need reps, and you need time in professional hockey, and goalies tend to go to the NHL when they make the NHL at a much later age, and Nikke Kokko is quite young, and having this experience, having this deep playoff run, having another deep playoff run for the Firebirds, this time with him in net instead of Joey Daccord in net, this is just invaluable experience that cannot be replicated. And we'll talk about it in a future episode. I have one earmarked that the Kraken goalie system, their prospect system, is actually very, very strong. And it goes just beyond what they have in Coachella Valley. I think ranked top 4, top 5 in a recent prospect rankings for goalies. So there's a lot there, but yeah, Nikke Kokko was really has really been sharp. But now, how does this game end? How does the series end? Well, J.R. Avon, who has been really fantastic, takes this beautiful stretch pass from Tyson Jugnuth and goes down. It's on a breakaway, and then he shoots and scores, and then that's it. And now the Coachella Valley Firebirds are moving on to play the Colorado Eagles, and that is going to start on Wednesday. That series, the first 2 games are at Acrisure Arena. This is also a best of 5, and then after this, there are 2 more rounds of the playoffs, and those will be best of 7. So if the Firebirds can get past Colorado, then they will be playing in a best of 7. But right now, it's 2 in Acrisure Arena and then 3 at Blue Arena in Loveland, Colorado. Loveland, incidentally, is where I grew up, or very close to that, as it serves the Loveland Fort Collins area, and I spent growing up my time split between Fort Collins and Loveland. So I don't know if I'm gonna go to any of the games. If I did, I'd probably go to Acrisure, but I do have family and friends in Loveland, so wouldn't be the worst thing ever. But regardless, the Firebirds, they're moving on. Now, coming up next, we're going to talk about the NHL salary cap. It is going up, and that is creating a really dangerous environment for the Kraken and a really bad trap that they could fall into, and we're hoping that they don't. And we're going to talk about that coming up after the break. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast, and that's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of all your finances in one place. How does Rocket Money help you keep track of your finances? Well, it automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and give you a clear picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. ED is way more common than most guys think. Millions of guys deal with it at some point, and that's exactly why HIMS offers a straightforward way to handle it. HIMS connects you with licensed healthcare providers online, giving you access to legitimate ED treatment options from the comfort of your home. No awkward appointments, no pharmacy lines, just a straightforward process that makes it easier to take care of yourself. The whole process is simple. You just complete a quick online intake and a provider reviews your information. If treatment is right for you, it ships directly to your door in discreet packaging, which makes the whole experience feel private and stress-free. It's straightforward, transparent, and designed to make getting care feel easy. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/lockedonnhl. That's hims.com/lockedonnhl for your free online visit. hims.com/lockedonnhl. Prescription required. See website for details on important safety information. Sildenafil is a generic version of Viagra. Viagra is a registered trademark of Viatris Specialty LLC. HIMS is not affiliated or endorsed by Viatris. Don't forget to check out the Everyday Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with other listeners of the show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. All right. Well, so there's a thing happening in the NHL, which is that the salary cap is going up by $25.5 million over the next 3 seasons. We're going to go from $88 million to $113.5 million by 2028. And that 3-year jump is about the same as the entire salary cap increase from 2010 to 2020. The flat cap era is dead. The austerity decade is over, and now the spending spree is about to begin. And what's going to happen is that some people are going to make some very bad contracts, and they're going to make some very bad signings. And I am really hoping that the Kraken are not one of them. So, all right, why is the cap going up so much? And after being flat, well, the NHL, I'm pretty sure I talked about this on a previous episode, so I won't go into like too much detail again. But when COVID happened, the revenues plummeted because you didn't have fans or games or TV revenue or anything, and the league just shut down in March of 2020. And then the NHL said, okay, well, since the salary cap is tied to league revenues, and league revenues have taken a huge hit, we can't reduce the cap by that amount because then teams will be over the cap, and it's a disaster. So what they did is they said, all right, we're going to borrow against future years of the cap, and as the revenues go up, then that will be will pay off the salary cap increase, or rather the salary cap will remain flat, and then we'll borrow against future revenues to restore the lost revenue by the 2020 season. Well, now that flat cap is over, and they have paid off the debt, and they paid off the revenue necessary to advance, and now there's all of this revenue that's coming in. So we have TV revenue, and we have the deal with the ESPN and ABC and TNT. And then also there is the Canadian deal with Rogers, and that is kicking in. and it's like $11 billion Canadian, so 7.7-ish billion dollars US. And you have Amazon Prime, and you have that whole deal. Then jersey patches and the Fanatics deal and the digital ads, and you have all of this extra revenue that is causing the salary cap to go up a lot. Well, the other thing is now the NHL has been cracking down on ways to loophole the salary cap. So now there's a playoff salary cap. So you can't do the thing where you stash a player in long-term injury reserve during the regular season. And then, hey, the playoffs started and there is no salary cap anymore. And hey, that player who was on LTIR and not counting against the cap is miraculously healthy day one of the playoffs. And this is what Tampa Bay did with Nikita Kucherov, and even wore a shirt, in the celebration after they won the cup, mocking people for saying, we were, however much over the cap. Mark Stone, famously for the Vegas Golden Knights, would go on LTIR and then be fine day one of the playoffs. And so there's really a lot of uproar and outcry about that, about the cap circumvention, which seemed pretty blatant. And now the NHL is going to be, or has implemented a playoff salary cap to get rid of that. And now you have what they're doing is they're taking all these loopholes. There was like a loophole where you could send a player down to the AHL and then call them back right back up. It's a paper transaction to save money, and so they eliminated that. And the way that this is going to affect free agency this summer is you not only have all of this cap room, you also have teams that have to reach a salary floor. The cap floor is $70.6 million. And then next year it's going to jump by $6.3 million. So teams are essentially going to have to spend about $6 million more on average just to stay above the floor. And that is the Sharks have to add like a bunch of money. And now you have all of this cap room, and the free agents market is pretty barren. The Alex Tuch is the only real headliner, and he's probably going to stay in Buffalo, would be my guess. But then after that, it's like a bunch of middle six forwards and some second pairing-ish defensemen and just kind of medium players. And Bobby McMann is going to be one of the premium free agents. We're going to talk about him in the next segment of the perils that presents. But the Kraken have cap room, but they don't have to use it. You just have to get above the salary floor. And I'm not saying this because I want the Kraken to save money, because I don't care. I'm not saying that the owner should be cheap, but spend your money wisely. Spend your money when there's actually money to be spent. And don't, cap room is a resource. It's not a mandate, right? You don't have to spend. Well, I sound like AI, like that's not a resource. That's a mandate. Like you can hear the M dashes dripping off my mouth. I used to write with M dashes, and that's not X, that's Y before AI showed up. And now when I've gone back and I read some of my writing, it's like, well, this reads like an AI wrote it, but it was before the robots, I swear. Anyway, I digress. So the Kraken don't have to, there's no mandate to spend. And now there's potentially pressure to do something to show the fan base that they're serious, that, it's an undisciplined approach, and it's an approach that has gotten the Kraken in trouble. The Chandler Stephenson contract is a disaster. The Brandon Montour contract is probably not going to age that well. And this is the trap that I think that the Kraken could find themselves very tempted to fall into, which is we have so much cap room, and we have to find somewhere to spend it. And if they want to spend a lot of money on a medium player for 2, even 3 years, all right, no big deal. I'm fine with it. If you want to be bad and you just want to bottom out and you make some bad contracts and it's not saddling the team for 7 years, 8 years, then go for it. Overpay, it's fine. But if they give them contract size and term, then that's really where the Kraken would be in big trouble. And again, we're going to use the Stephenson and Montour deals, both 7-year deals for 30-year-olds. Because that's the other thing, too, is when you're signing free agents, players don't hit free agency until they're later in their career and past their prime. And so you're paying for what they did and not what they're going to do in most cases. And we're going to use Bobby McMann as a really good example of exactly this kind of thinking, this kind of danger. And we're going to talk about that coming up next. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for with skills, experience, and location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the time I've been talking to you, companies like yours make 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your job boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, so let's talk about Bobby McMann, because I think this is one of the most interesting free agent cases we've seen in a while. And I think he's a pretty good test case for how the Kraken and overall how he's going to be a test case for the free agency market. So Bobby McMann scored 29 goals this year, and he's big, he's fast, he's really fast, like elite speed. And you saw that turning defense into offense. There'd be a quick turnover, then you set it on, he's on his way, and then he scores and can finish. Like, you remember Brandon Tanev when he would go on a breakaway, and then it's like, wow, okay, cool, it's a breakaway, but he's not scoring because he was a terrible finisher. And Bobby McMann has all of the Brandon Tanev speed, but also the ability to score. And not as memeable, but also, well, anyway, he can play either left wing or right wing, and he is also 30 years old. He is a pending unrestricted free agent, and he had a very loud late season heater where he scored a bunch of goals in a really small sample. And that is where it gets shaky. So if you look at his best 20 game stretch, he scored 11 goals and it's 45 goal pace. Wow, that's really, really good. But we have a history of this archetype. And let's take a look at other players around his age who have had similar goal scoring heaters. So we have Bobby McMann, scored 11 goals in 20 games. David Perron, 15 and 20. Blake Coleman, Ryan Johansson, Zach Smith, Marcus Foligno, Vittorius Filipula, and Louis Eriksson. Excuse me. All of them had really fantastic heaters around the age of 28 or later, 29. And then all of them fell way off after, right? So you have your before baseline, they go on this big heater, and then after the heater, it falls way back. And Bobby McMann was not really, I mean, he did score 29 goals, but his expected goals didn't really increase that much. And in fact, he was in the 98th percentile, so he's in the top 2% of luck for finishing, which is something that is inherently unstable. If you want to look at year 2 of the Kraken, where the team overall went on a shooting percentage bender, and then we're like, oh man, this team's really good. Well, actually, turns out that was just a shooting percentage bender, and that is going to regress. And so now, if you look at that at an individual level, Bobby McMann is doing the same thing here. He is 98%, 98 percentiles in the top 2% of finishing luck. And when we looked at that, we've looked at cases of that, when somebody has had an outlier season where they finish in that top 2%, the next season, it almost always gets worse. And I have highlighted everyone age 29 or older in the brownish orange lines. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not, I can just tell you it gets worse. It gets much worse. And so Bobby McMann is a dangerous player to treat like he is going to be the future driver of elite offense, right? Now, I'm not saying that he's not a useful player. Obviously, he's a useful player, but he's more a third line player than he is a first line player. I think he, when running the analysis and the projections, projects to be more like a Capo Kakko kind of producer, a Jordan Eberle type, which is borderline top 100, but not someone who is going to drive a lot of offense. And so, the age matters, right? Like Brock Besser had a heater, but he was 21. And you can say, okay, well, maybe this is just a star player coming online. But McMann is 30. And when he's 30 and the shooting percentage like jumps way up and the goal totals spike, then you really need strong underlying evidence to the burden of proof is higher, and the expected goals numbers have not been particularly different. It's just the pucks are just going in a little bit more often, or a lot more often than what you would normally expect. And that happens. And that happens to a bunch of players throughout their careers. But David Perron shouldn't be paid like he's David Pastrnak because he went on a heater. And so there is a trap here because, look, you can re-sign Bobby McMann. There is a price where he makes sense. You can sign him to, like I said, like a 2 or 3 year deal. But I don't think he wants that because he's 30 years old. He was an undrafted player. He worked his way up through the ECHL in the NHL. And this is his chance to get his payday. And if a team's going to offer him 6 or 7, or if the Kraken could offer him 8 years, the Kraken and only the Kraken could offer him 8 years because they're the team re-signing him, then I think he would take that. And so a 3-year deal is probably not going to get this done. And so are the Kraken going to make another mistake and bet on another 30-year-old and give them a 7-year, 8-year deal? And now we're talking about in 3 years, we talk about Bobby McMann the same way we're talking about Chandler Stephenson now, or worse. It's a dangerous thing. And so if you are viewing Bobby McMann as a winger that can give you 20 goals, okay, sure. That's a good place to start. If you view him as a 30 goal scorer and you're like, this 30-year-old had a breakout season and now this is who he is, that's really where it gets really uncomfortable, and there's a lot of buyer beware there. So a lot of interesting stuff happening around Bobby McMann. I'm really, really interested to see how free agency goes. And so we'll have the draft. And it's just for an off season, there's a lot going on with this team. So we'll have plenty of chances to talk about it. Well, that does it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Kraken. We will be back tomorrow to discuss more Kraken, more free agency. Maybe we'll do a little draft preview. So you can find us at David Jones Laura on all social media platforms, or at davidjoneslockerroom.com, where we do print coverage of the Seattle Torrent and Kraken. If you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Kraken ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure this is one of your 2 daily listens. For Davy Jones Locker Room, I'm Zaiem Beg, and I will see you tomorrow.